It's back. COBI is back. This is a new era for COBI. They started with the mouse, and now they're bringing it into new vehicles. Interiors. So first off, of course, the compulsory Girls on Panzer figure adaptation. This isn't the best interpretation, not the best face, not the best hairstyle, but it's the best I have with my parts piece collection, and from a distance it looks fine, for me at least. But focus on the tank. Where do we start? Similarities to the Panther. It has the same sprocket piece and the same tracks, but it has a new idler piece. It has new massive roll wheel pieces. It still doesn't have the one return roller that Panther had, but it even has, they are included, but it even has notches where you can put side skirts if you wish. Of course, with COBI, there is no stickers whatsoever. Every single thing you see is a print, and they're a good quality print. As for the increase in price, again, with COBI sets over the years, I can say without any hesitation, this is worth it, because you pretty much build the entire tank in 2 bags. The third bag is just interior, and that would cut the price down by like $20. So yeah, it's more expensive than COBI tanks used to be, but it's going somewhere. They do a really good job with blending. Like, this is a brick built detail or camouflage here, and that blends right into a print on this piece. Really couldn't have been brick built. And the color matching, again, COBI does an amazing job at that. It looks just as good in person as it does on the camera. Now, new color of Dunkelgelb. In most light, again, this bright light in the studio, it looks great, and I love it. In some lights, especially dimmer lights, it looks kind of greenish, like almost like sickly. But as long as it's brightly lit, it's fine. And it's more accurate to Dunkelgelb. Not perfectly accurate, but more accurate. I still will miss the tan COBI used to use all the time, and I prefer that, honestly, personally. That's just me. I know that's completely subjective, because yes, objectively, this color is more realistic. Now, another thing that I've noticed, this will also come up on the Jagdpanther. Move the barrel for a bit. You see right there? There's a bit of an offset between that barrel piece and the connector. And as I rotate it, the offset can change. See that very noticeable step? It really won't focus well, but let me see if I focus up close. There we go. I'll show you when I do the Jagdpanther review, and I'll mention that there. That is not... It's fixable if you rotate everything to align it up to a perfect level, but then you don't really get to choose where the mold marks are. You know, those little white dots. That's a problem, because I like to put the mold marks on the bottom of the barrel to make it as invisible as possible. And you see right there at the very end, look at that. Look at that notch. Does not want to focus, but I think you can see that very well. That never used to happen with any of the older COBI sets I have. That, to me, is a bit of a signal of mold degradation. So, yes, these are old pieces COBI's been using for a long time that have in their inventory. It might be time they make new molds for them. If anyone from COBI is watching, I might want to point that out. Otherwise, though, the new muzzle brake piece is amazing. The mantlet's great. You have not as much elevation depression as you might hope for. I haven't measured this compared to how it should be in real life, but it doesn't bother me for the poses I want to get with this. Well, poses, you know what I mean. Print here, there is a new machine gun piece. As you can see, it is a hybrid between the old MG style piece, the MG42 with the jacket, with the holes in it, the cooling jacket, and the piece they used for the Shermans and such, and that they originally used for the Tiger II, which was just this shape, but didn't have the holes, the cooling jacket. This piece, you see, it actually has the cooling jacket there. The MG, again, it can't go side to side. The driver's vision port is not a perfect 90 degrees. You see, it comes off slanted at an angle. The barrel can, and I'll show this later on the inside, it can move side to side. That's not me flexing it. That's like inbuilt on a turntable. But it's not a lot of traverse. I'd have liked it to be more, but to get the gaps, everything to line up without there being gigantic gaps everywhere, that's the best they could do. Around the rear, there's no bucket again, but they've used their very good exhaust pieces. The detail is there as it should be. Well, the camera just blew out for a second. There is the new COBI shovel, which again I don't like, but there's this semblance of, they even got the hinges there built up for a hatch, but the hatch is not open on the back, which I don't know if they could have gotten a way for them to make that open, but I would like to have seen them at least try. On the top, I'm just going to start removing pieces to show you the top. Oh, by the way, yes, it rolls incredibly well. There's no problems at all. On the track tension, this I have not modified it at all. It's stock track tension. When you buy it, the track's a bit more tense, but as with age, plastic will warp, so the track will actually slack a bit over time. Even more than this, I'm sure. So, you just lift the top up and then out. These two hinge pieces hook into plates, like the lips of plates, if you will. The vision port is a print. It's a very nice, very bright print. There's no fading there. All the other detail is very nice. The hatches are built kind of in an ad hoc manner, and they droop inward a little bit, and there's a bit of a gap in between them, but they open. And you can sit figures in the hatches, but you really do have to rely on the figures' arms to hold them inside the gaps, because there's nothing, you just have to take my word for it right now, but the rearmost hatch, there is a bit of a lip that figure could stand one leg on, but not really. It's best just sit them. The frontmost hatch, there is no, you drop something in there, it'll just fall down. There's no standing support whatsoever, so it is best to use the figure's arms to hold them up. And the frontmost hatch will get in the way of the turret, or the mantlet gun movement somewhat if a figure is standing. The removable rear section will similarly lift up and then out. There is an opening hatch, a very stiff, thick, built-up brick hatch, but it's necessary to get the details in there for the engine, so you can see the engine through that. And it has continued the COBI tradition of late war Panthers with, mix-matched engine radiators, some of the thick type, some of the thin type, which is realistic. I'd like to see them do at least one that's symmetrical, but that's their choice. That is about all the detail you will see with the hatch open. To get actually in there, you are going to have to take the engine deck cover off completely, which brings a lot more detail, and I'll just show you the top now. Look at all that. We'll start with the engine first. They do not give you a tool, but it's pretty easy this time. Just grab the engine and pull it out of there. And comparing it with the Panther's engine, you see it's very similar. You see, over the top, they used a 2x4 tile of prints as opposed to two 2x2 round tiles of prints. And they were also able to get a lot more depth to actually build up the full engine, as opposed to they just had about half the engine detail. And it's considerably larger. I don't like how the hoses just kind of hang out there and don't wrap around, but I honestly couldn't tell you what's more realistic. I am not an engine aficionado. As for the engine bay, comparing it to the Panther, it's really your choice. The new one has a lot more detail. I personally like the Panther's use of the actual round pieces for the radiator fans that can actually spin. But I don't know how the engine bay actually looks. So, I'm not intelligent enough to speak on that. I will say that as for the vehicles, length, width, they're pretty much identical. Proportions are a bit different, but overall, they're identical enough that you believe these are two of the same tank, built in the same hull and chassis, down to the angle of the front glacis plate. Now, comparing this to the inside of the Jagdpanther, ammunition is where it should be. It's accurate to a degree, but really, the inside, it should be further down, because the entire point of the case-made tank destroyer is that you can put a large gun in a chassis and make the gun lower down, because you have, like, there would be a turret ring, like a space with a turret basket that goes down pretty much to the whole floor. Without that, the crew can pretty much stand on the whole floor, which is, like, that's not... The floor for the fighting compartment here is about here, which it should be, noticeably lower, which would have given more space. I don't know why they did that. It probably has to do with some sort of, like, build integrity. But regardless, the main thing is that for scale-wise, to get the unnecessary amount of detail, the gun just has to be... The gun, as in, like, the breech, the firing components, the entire weapon, has to be so large, you really can't fit much of anything else in there. Which, to be fair, yes, the breech of actual guns inside the tanks, they are monstrous. They take up a huge amount of room in the turret fighting compartment, but it wasn't this big. It's, more specifically, with the size of a stud, the smallest piece you could put in there, there's so little room. Like, you would need to have pieces that are like half or a quarter of a stud wide to be able to build up a full amount of detail inside this fighting compartment at this scale. So I understand why there isn't more seats, isn't more stuff. But as for what's there, it's good. Unfortunately, there is no, what the heck happened there? There is no breech port to load ammunition in, even though it comes with the specialized ammunition pieces. There is a little, again, scale-wise, look at that. That seat, it's pretty small for a minifigure. You really couldn't get a minifigure in there. You can try. But again, because of the scale, that would just not work. See, the hair is just barely sticking up over the whole... The main thing is, without the extra depth, that's one of the reasons, again, along with the sculpting and they wanted to minimize gap right here at the front of the mantlet. That's the reason the barrel can't, elevate as much as it would really should. And as you can see, it's more apparent when you look at the breech. The gun does traverse, and this really has more room to traverse inside the crew compartment, but just because of they want to minimize gap, that there's not much that they can get out of that with the Jagdpanther's design. Other tanks, they are able to work with that design and get a better amount of movement, and you'll see that in my reviews of them. There are so little gaps everywhere else. That's a nice print right there for the headlight, even though it won't focus. There's a nice print inside there, which you can barely see for some detail. And you can place figures in there, but if you do, you won't be able to get the gun to traverse really at all. And unless the figure's like sitting down in really awkward positions that completely hinder the gun, I suppose you could have a figure like back here, or like laying underneath the gun for some reason, but then that just... There is really no way to fill this crew compartment while the hatches, or while the top cover is on. Unlike the, T-28, which just shows why, it's more difficult for these smaller, I say smaller, relatively smaller vehicles, as compared to the T-28 or the Mouse, where Panlos and COBI were relatively easily able to get pretty well detailed, as well as the E100, pretty well detailed fighting compartments and engine compartments, just because of how much larger the vehicles were and how much space they were able to work with. Because as the vehicles get larger, an individual stud relative to the size of the vehicle gets smaller, so they're able to pack more detail in there and be able to have more space. For example, like to make the necessary structural rigidity, the walls have to be a few plates thick. And as you make a bigger fighting compartment, the walls don't need to get bigger, so you have more room inside to put detail. I do have a special treat for all of you. And again, when this is on top, there's so little gaps, and they get the angles and the proportions just nailed so well. But yes, I was able to find and rebuild my old Panther. This is the World of Tanks. Remember when they did those crossovers? Warsaw Uprising COBI Panther. From like, I don't know how long ago, but you'll know when you see it. Yeah. Old muzzle brake piece, old machine gun piece. But you're going to see I changed it out in the new Panther for the new style. The one they have here. A lot more boxy of a turret. A lot more squat. The smaller barrel piece on the standard piece they had. The hatches, instead of being 1x2, are 2x2, and they're large. The one thing I think it does have over the old Panther, the new Panther, is that it has actually the sloped lower glacis plate, as opposed to here, where it just does not. And they brought that back with the new Panther, or the Jagdpanther, with the sloped lower glacis. And they have like the individual, not much detail in the back, just one gigantic one-piece mufflers that angle off in an incorrect manner. These massive molded pieces for the fans, and this old grilled hatch piece that reveals the old engine piece. You can see gaps here. There's exposed studs here and here, which, like, that's so much where COBI has, there's exposed studs here, but apart from that, other than what's meant for detail on the new Panther and the Jagdpanther, there's one exposed stud there. There are no exposed studs anywhere other than where it's intended to be there, specifically for greebling. Like, that dot, for example, that is a hole. That's a port. That's a detail on the real Panther. Jagdpanther, Panther. When talking about the hole, I use the term interchangeably just to simplify. But yeah, this is like an excellent showing of how COBI has progressed over the years. And you see, this is back in the day when they had just the black hull, the black brick they built a tank on top of. But yeah, this is a little teaser to whet your appetite. There are more COBI reviews coming soon. This Jagdpanther, though, is a symbol of things to come. It is incredible. It's awesome. I'm glad they made an update to it finally. But I don't have anything else other than, like, Panthers, which isn't really the same thing. I don't have anything else to compare it to. That's not so for the new tanks. Stay tuned.